Imagine waking up before sunrise, not in your own home, not beside your family, but on a freezing Viking farm where every second of your life belongs to someone else. Congratulations, you're a Viking Thrall, a slave in one of the most feared societies in history. And despite what movies tell you, being a Viking wasn't always about glory and adventure. For thousands of people, Viking life meant endless labor, hunger, and fear. You don't own land, you don't own your clothes, you don't even own yourself. Your master decides where you work, what you eat, and whether your family stays together. If he wants to sell you tomorrow, there's nothing you can do. One day you're working on a farm, the next you're standing in a slave market hundreds of miles away. And the worst part? Most thralls were born into slavery, meaning from the moment they opened their eyes, freedom was never an option. So while Viking warriors dreamed of glory, thralls dreamed of something much simpler, surviving another day. Narration: if you thought being captured was the worst part, you'd be wrong. Because now the real work begins. As a Viking thrall, your days started before sunrise and often ended long after dark. You worked the fields, you carried water, you chopped wood, you repaired buildings, and if your owner needed something done, you did it. There were no weekends, no vacations, no retirement, just work, day after day, year after year. And the food? Let's just say the warriors ate first. Thralls often survived on whatever was left. Stale bread, cheap porridge, scraps of meat, sometimes not even that. During harsh winters, hunger became a normal part of life. Many thralls spent months exhausted, cold, and underfed. And if you got sick, there was no doctor rushing to help you, because replacing a thrall was often easier than saving one. For thousands of Viking slaves, survival wasn't about living well. It was simply about making it to tomorrow. And if the endless work wasn't bad enough, there was always the threat of punishment. A Viking thrall had very few rights. If your owner thought you were lazy, you could be beaten. If you made a costly mistake, you could be punished. And if you tried to escape, the consequences could be severe. The law rarely protected thralls, because in the eyes of society, they were property, not equals, not citizens, property. Even sleeping wasn't much of an escape. Most thralls lived in cramped conditions with little privacy and few comforts. Cold winters made life even worse. Imagine waking up every morning knowing your entire future depended on the mood of another person. One bad harvest, one angry owner, one unlucky day, and your situation could become even more miserable. For many thralls, fear wasn't something they experienced occasionally. It was part of everyday life, and that constant uncertainty was almost as painful as the hard labor itself. And if you were lucky enough to survive the work, there was still another problem. You could lose your family at any moment. A thrall wasn't protected by the same rights as a free person, which meant husbands, wives, and children could be separated through sale or trade. Imagine spending years with the people you love, only to watch them disappear because someone offered the right price. And there was nothing you could do about it. No court, no appeal, no choice. For many thralls, the fear of separation was constant. Every stranger arriving at the farm could mean bad news. Every visit to a marketplace could change your future forever. And while some thralls eventually earned their freedom, most never did. Most spent their entire lives serving someone else's family while their own dreams slowly disappeared. In a society built on strength and status, thralls had almost neither, and that made their lives some of the hardest in the entire Viking world. Narration: for female thralls, life could be even harsher because their labor wasn't the only thing owners valued. Many worked inside Viking households, cooking, cleaning, caring for children, doing whatever was demanded of them. And unlike free women, they had very little protection. Their future depended almost entirely on the people who owned them. Some female thralls were sold multiple times throughout their lives, forced to leave behind everyone they knew, again and again and again. Even children weren't spared. If you were born a thrall, your life started at the bottom of society. Before you could walk, your future had already been decided. But despite everything, some thralls never stopped hoping. A few managed to earn their freedom. Others were freed by their owners, though these cases were rare. For most thralls, freedom remained a distant dream, something they could imagine but never touch. And every morning as the sun rose over the Viking world, they went back to work. And if you're wondering whether a thrall could simply run away, the answer is complicated. Technically, yes, but in reality, it was incredibly dangerous. Viking communities were small. People knew each other. A stranger wandering through the countryside attracted attention immediately. And if a runaway thrall was caught, the punishment could be brutal. Even if you escaped successfully, survival wasn't guaranteed. You'd need food, shelter, protection from the cold, and somewhere to hide. In a world without modern cities, disappearing was almost impossible. Some thralls spent years dreaming about freedom, planning their escape, waiting for the perfect opportunity. But for most, that opportunity never came, because every day brought the same question: risk everything for a small chance at freedom, or stay alive one more day as a slave. And for many thralls, survival won, not because they lacked courage, but because the odds were stacked against them from the very beginning. So, would you survive as a Viking thrall? Probably not, and neither would most people alive today. We imagine history as a world of heroes, legendary warriors, epic battles, and glorious victories. But for millions of ordinary people, history looked very different. It looked like hard labor, cold winters, empty stomachs, and a life controlled by someone else. The Viking thrall never sailed home with treasure, never became a famous warrior, never had songs written about them. Their victory was much smaller, much quieter. They survived, one day at a time. And that's what makes their story so important. Because behind every great civilization, there are forgotten people carrying the weight of it. People whose names never made it into history books. People who worked, suffered, endured, and disappeared. The Viking Age gave us legendary kings, explorers, and warriors. But for the thralls trapped at the bottom of society, it was a completely different story, a story of survival, a story of sacrifice, and a reminder that freedom is something many people only appreciate once it's gone. So the next time you see a movie about fearless Vikings charging into battle, remember the people history forgot. Because if you had been born into the Viking world, there's a good chance you wouldn't have been the warrior. You would have been the thrall. But here's the part most people never think about. The Vikings we remember were warriors, explorers, and kings. But they were the exception, not the rule. For every famous Viking, there were countless thralls working in silence, growing food, building homes, doing the hard labor that kept Viking society alive. And while history remembered the powerful, it almost completely forgot the people who carried them.